Hello, everyone.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm good.
Great. Well, I think everyone's in here. I'm just going to do a quickly introduce Kitty, and then she's going to take it away with her presentation. So welcome to everyone. Kitty Morse was born in Casablanca to a French mother and British father and immigrated to the US in 1964. She got her master's degree in French from UWM in 1969, and her mother, Nicole Chandler, was once president of the Alliance Française de Milwaukee. She returns to Morocco regularly to spend time at her family's Riyadh, Dar Zitoun, in the walled city of Azamur, 90 miles south of Casablanca. Dar Zitoun is the subject of her award-winning memoir, Minty and Minarets, a banquet of Moroccan memories, published in December of 2012. Kitty's career as a food writer, speaker, cooking teacher, and lecturer spans more than 30 years. She is the author of 11 cookbooks, 5 of them on the cuisine of Morocco and North Africa. The California Farm Cookbook took her around her home state of California to interview close to 200 California farmers and food producers. To subscribe to her monthly newsletter, the Casbah Chronicles, now in its 13th year, please visit her website, kittymorse.com. We can drop that in the chat, and welcome. Merci, Kitty.
Merci, Erin. It's always fun to be in touch with Milwaukee. Since my mother was the president many years ago, but Anne, you know her. So let me get started with a presentation, and we will leave the questions to the end. Either you can talk to me or you can leave it in the chat. So for the cover of my memoir, Minty and Minarets, I took, in fact, a photo of this very famous minaret, La Tour Hassan in Rabat, which you will obviously see. And what I really loved about it is how Morocco is home to les cigognes. Qu'est-ce que c'est les cigognes en anglais? Thank you. Storks. They migrate from Alsace to Morocco, and then they establish these condos, unbelievably huge nests, and they're really not very bright birds. They're not kind of dumb. So sometimes you can touch these babies, they're so low. But I love the photo, and you will see it from the Shella Roman ruins. Riyadh means a Moorish mansion. It's a traditional Moorish mansion, and you'll see pictures, but it's located halfway down the coast of Morocco. You can see the Mediterranean at the north, Atlantic Ocean on the west coast. We have 2,000 miles of coastlines in purely Mediterranean climate, which makes it very, very similar to where I am in San Diego County. Morocco, San Diego and Casablanca are on the same latitude. So Azamur is a tiny little city surrounded by walls, and halfway down the coast, if I can find it, just imagine it's here. It's on the ocean right here, Azamur. So this is a 16th century map. My father was a collector, and I have a fabulous collection of books on Morocco, historical, geographical, which I am donating to the Geographical Library in Milwaukee. And I'm thrilled because they love what they're receiving. So it's a real collector's collection. Azamur in the 16th century, this is a woodcut, traditional woodcut. And our home, I mean, it hasn't changed very much. Look at all the minarets. Minarets are these towers from which the muezzin calls to prayer 5 times a day. So we are Azamur, or Dar Zitoun is right there on the river. And this is what it looks like today. And this is Dar Zitoun here with the arch window. Up here, about 1 mile, is the Atlantic Ocean. And in 1908, this is what Dar Zitoun looked like. La Maison du Pacha, the largest home in the Medina, the home of the Pasha, which means the Pasha is a little step above the city mayor, but it was in one piece, which is kind of interesting because my father purchased a ruin, but it was in one piece. It was bombed by the French in 1909 or 1910 because the Berbers of the area were acting up, and the king asked for the French's help at that time. So the frigate came out the river, bombed our house, but you'll see the result. My grandfather, Armand Darmon, who actually was a member of the Alliance and the founder of the Causerie du Samedi, he lived in Milwaukee, I think for about 40 years, but he came to Morocco in 1914, 1912, 1914, as a vice consul for the government of France, actually after 1914, because he was one of the colonialist powers that came into Morocco and took over the government. Well, the French government did, but he was a vice consul. And here he is on horseback patrolling the Atlas Mountains and acting as liaison between the French and the Berber chieftains, who were sort of siding with the French, but they needed to be reminded that, you know, the French were okay, they were going to build them roads, they were going to go cross the Atlas Mountains with a road and all this. So my grandfather went up there and talked to the Glaoui, the head of the Berbers. He was a friend of the Glaoui. And then in 1943, in came my father, a British citizen who enrolled in the Royal Air Force and arrived there after 44, I think, after Operation Torch and the American landings, because I don't know if you're aware that the liberation of Europe started in North Africa, truly. The Americans landed in Morocco, and so did the British. And then they went from Morocco to Algeria to Tunisia, and then they went up north into Italy. So that's how they invaded Europe, is through North Africa. And while they did that, my mother picked this up in the street in Casablanca, Message du Président des États-Unis, a flyer that sought to reassure the Moroccans, not the colonial, well, and the colonialist powers, the French, that they were coming as friends. Don't worry, just help us. Don't put anything in our way. We come here as friends and we are liberating Europe from here. And this is a flyer in Arabic. I just love this. They dropped them in the street in Casablanca and my mother saved a couple. I think it's very cool. Most of you have heard of Morocco. Maybe you realize it's Morocco from Casablanca. So I am a Casablancaise. It's a fabulous movie. I used to poo-poo it and say, yeah, you know, it's Casablanca, but it's fake. It's really not true. But you know, the more I watch it, and I have watched it many times, Casablanca was a real den of spies, of thieves, of saviors, of, you know, during the war, it was a big, like a turning, Lazy Susan. People came in and then they left for Argentina, they left for Canada, they left for America. Many of the people who were refused entry into Europe ended up there. In fact, my great grandmother and her daughter befriended Freud's daughter, Sophie Freud, who went through Casablanca before she came to America. So my parents in the late 50s obtained, it was so fortunate. This is one of the most iconic buildings in Casablanca. You might drive by it, but now it's part of all the architecture books. It's a huge triangle and it's a block. And my parents and I, we lived up here on the 5th floor with a view of the park. And you can see this is a 1920s, 25 photo, maybe. It still looks exactly the same. So I grew up here on a balcony. And when we had school holidays, my father, who ended up being the leading tour operator in Morocco, I didn't mention, but I led 23 food tours to Morocco, and I don't anymore. But my father started this tour operator agency called Olive Branch Tours, which no longer exists. But every school holiday, we would crisscross Morocco so that he could interview Berber chieftains and go seek, you know, the best souk in town or the best village. And I'm standing here with a very famous woman who was actually featured in a Walt Disney movie. Her name is Bouchara, and she was the queen of the Berber dancers, especially of the southern Berber dancers that you always hear about, the real Berbers, the desert Berbers, not the mountain Berbers. And you can look at her costume. She's wearing sort of fake tresses as one does now, but all sorts of jewels, and this is a blue robe. She's a member of the Blue People tribe, as my brother and me. And I absolutely loved traveling around Morocco, just going up in the mountains and My father was very adventurous. It was very cool. Now, in the late 60s, he would stop here along a riverbank, and he would see that someone in the city or the county was putting on a fantasia. The fantasia is sort of a race horse. Horses race down an earthen runway, and they can be 50 or 100 horsemen on horseback, and they fire their guns in unison. And let me tell you, if you manage to hang on to your stomach, you're lucky. It's just awe-inspiring, and they all stop at the same time and they fire. Oh, it really sets your guts shaking. At this point, this is with me. This is Dar Zitoun right here with the big arch windows, and it's the only authentic riad left in the Medina and the largest. But the ramparts were crumbling when my father bought it. And I believe I was taping a show here, because I taped a couple of TV shows in Morocco for American food. It was hilarious. I taught them how to make chili. If you need any more explanation, ask for it. This is a TV crew filming in front of Dar Zitoun, the white walls, the white houses of Dar Zitoun. But that's what it looked like in 1909, right here, completely bombed. So we can still see the inside. We still have the archways. We still have the colonnade. We have the whole garden. There were 2 floors that my father destroyed because it was very dangerous, actually 3. Underneath here, we have ovens dug into the cliff that are large enough to hold 22 lambs. A lamb is a animal meat that you eat for ceremonies. Our hammams, also the bath, hold 22 lambs. Now the city, these are modern, but Azemmour is surrounded by ramparts. I don't know if you'll drive by it. Your itinerary is really Marrakesh and Essaouira, or the touristy places, which is fine. But these are the ramparts that surround our Kasbah. They have been rebuilt, but this dates from about, oh gosh, the late 1400s. And the garrison, authentic. Now the Portuguese occupied Azemmour for quite a while, because the Portuguese, not the Spaniards, the Portuguese set up counters or small trading posts all the way down the West African coast. And this was one of them. But preceding this, the Phoenicians already had a presence in Azemmour. The Phoenicians used to travel up and down the coast of Western Africa, and they used to trade koshni, a purple coloring agent that they got from a cactus, and they couldn't speak the same language. So when I was doing research, I learned that the Portuguese came down the coast. Now this is 1450 or so, or the Phoenicians 2,000 years ago couldn't speak the same language as the autochthone, the original inhabitants. So they would come off their boats and they would set us on the ground whatever they wanted to exchange, and this was color. Koshni, I'm sorry, the English word escapes me, but it's a purple coloring from a cactus. And the Berbers, or the people of the area, would come up and they would trade beads without speaking, because they couldn't speak their own language or their respective languages. We still have this gorgeous cannon on the main square in Azemmour. It says, "Poderoso es Dios." So the Spaniards were there as well. Now, inside Dar Zitoun, very traditional riad. The fountain, our fountain is original, it's Portuguese. The floor, the Z-Lige tiles are original, probably from 200 years ago. And underneath this fountain is a cistern. It looks like a swimming pool. I mean, it's enormous. I was down there a couple of years ago. I couldn't believe how big it was, because all they drank was rainwater. So up here is open. There's an opening in the ceiling. The rain falls in the fountain overflows, and this goes into the cistern, and that's what you drank and wash with. I'm standing here when I was a bit younger, but that's the center of the fountain, of the atrium. And my father restored this whole place, which was a ruin, over the course of 20 years. And he employed workers and artisans from around Morocco, which you will visit and you will buy. Anyway, some of them came to the house and painted the doors. Very traditional, very tall doors. We have an arched door here for humans. And when this faces the outside facade, we have a huge door here that's open, and it used to let the horses and the animals come in to spend the night in the center of the Riyadh. And all the columns have been restored. Our new facade is right here. So this is the old wall, and my father had to tear down what you saw in the old picture because it was too dangerous. I have a European neighbor here and a European neighbor here. Many Europeans come there, have a holiday house or else to retire. My minaret by the house is right behind the most traditional thing you will drink in Morocco, which is syrupy sweet mint tea. And I mean syrupy sweet. When I used to take my groups to Morocco, you usually land there about 7 a.m. It's a night flight. And we would have a tour of Morocco, Casablanca, and look for a cafe. And I said, oh, it's time for mint tea. My God, the first glass of mint tea, my hair would stand on end. It's so sweet. And I was charged for the day. I love it. This is a traditional pot-bellied teapot. And then Minta Viridis, really common mint. Inside Dar Zitoun again, the colonnade. You see the big door, and these go upstairs, and what comes down here are sparrows. They figured out the way, they fly down the stairs, and they come and nest in my plants, and they poop all over the floor. And we have had long conversations about this, but there's nothing I can do. And actually, I love the birds, that they feel so at home, they can come in. My father decorated the, Dar Zitoun with very traditional lamps, which you will see. These are Marrakesh. Our holy man lives here. We have a holy man, truly, buried under the stairs. His name is Sidi Marfi. I'm very friendly with Sidi Marfi. He's a saint, I think, from the 11th or 12th century. And legend goes that he is buried under our stairs. And up until my father's death, and I think even I was there once, some lady comes knocking at the door. She wants to pray at the tomb of Sidi Marfi and light a candle. And of course, we love letting them in. I just think it's wonderful. So when I'm there, I tell Sidi Marfi, thank you very much, and please watch over my father. This could be another saint, except this is a fascinating story of the Black Berber who discovered America, and he really did. His story is told in a book, La Relación de Álvar Núñez, Cabeza de Vaca. Cabeza de Vaca was a Spanish explorer who he didn't capture Estebanico in Spanish because he was Christianized. So in Spanish it's Estebanico, but in Arabic it's Alzemori, the man from Azemur. The sculpture was made by an American artist from El Paso, Texas, who came to Morocco, had heard the story, went looking for this man in the Sahara, found this model, which is fantastic, and created a bronze bust, which you can see if you go to the El Paso Museum. Estebanico left traces for sure. He was part of the Cabeza de Vaca expedition. Well, he was captured by the Spaniards, sold on the slave market of Castile to a conquistador, and was renamed Estebanico, Small Esteban. So he accompanied the conquistador to La Florida in 1539. Núñez Cabeza de Vaca led an expedition. They got to La Florida. Most of them died, except if you read the Relación de Álvar Núñez de Cabeza de Vaca, your hair will stand on end, but only 4 survived, Estebanico and 3 other conquistadors, and they walked from La Florida to the Sea of Cortez, which is south of where I am in San Diego. It took them 9 years. And it's a true story. There's a park in Tucson, El Paso, the statue, the bust, and in La Florida, Florida, I'm not quite sure. There is some memorial to Estebanico in Florida. I can't remember where, but in a very ancient city in Florida. So Estebanico was multilingual. He was a Berber. He was very intelligent, and he was very tall, much taller than the Spaniards. So he led the way, and as he led the way, he learned all the Indian language or Aboriginal languages of the time. And so he created a cult, and thousands of people would follow them when they walked. Mind you, they left traces in Galveston, Texas. I mean, you can find traces of their expedition all the way to the Sea of Cortez, which is unbelievable. So he comes from Azemmour, I'm very proud to say, and I've written a lot about him. You might want to check out online, Estebanico, and with my name, you'll find an article. So he came, and so the Moroccans never had anything to do with it. And what's interesting is that, excuse me, he died. He ended up in Mexico City, where he caught the 4 conquistadors who were finally arrived in Mexico, and they were taken to the viceroy in Mexico City. But the viceroy had his eyes on Cabeza de Vaca. He rewarded the Spaniards with riches and said, I want Esteban. And he sent Esteban north to New Mexico, which is now New Mexico, to discover the 7 cities of Cibola. And so off he went, Estebanico, and he got to the Zuni Pueblo. You'll find more details online, where he was killed, just to condense everything. And the Indians didn't want anything, or the Aboriginals, I should say, didn't want anything to do with him. And they killed him with a spike in his heart. So there's a big story behind here. So hello and goodbye, Estebanico. But he comes, this guy, the model, comes from the Sahara. Bouchaïb Marzouk was my father's caretaker and cook. He's a fabulous cook. Many of the recipes that I gave in Menti and Minarets, I tested in Azemmour with Bouchaïb and wrote down religiously what he was doing, because first of all, he was practically illiterate, and I had to look at him. That's how you do it in these countries, just follow people. He was quite a character. He came to my father in the 60s, and he said, I can do everything, leave me here, I will take care of everything. And since my father lived in Casablanca and this was his weekend home, yeah, Bouchaïb took a lot of weight off his shoulders. But on top of that, he had been trained by a French family. I mean, this man could really, really cook. I miss him. He died about 10 years ago. We have a new Bouchaïb now, but this lady lives across the river from us, and she is pulling water from a sacred well. This shrine is a shrine to Lala Bakhiria. Lala Bakhiria was actually from Iraq, from Baghdad. And she developed a friendship with a holy man of Azemmour, whose name is Bouchaïb. Every man practically at Azemmour is named Bouchaïb. It's the saint of the town. And she started a correspondence in the 11th century with C. Bouchaïb, and she decided she willed her rug to fly her to Morocco so she could meet her mentor, C. Bouchaïb. The legend goes. She got to the opposite bank of Bouchaïb's shrine and died. And so the people of the town erected this shrine, a marabout. It's called a marabout, where women who want to conceive, who want a husband, go to pray and go to bathe in the holy water. I was not allowed inside that shrine because I'm not a Muslim, but there were plenty of ladies with wet hair. They just go in the shrine, they get water from the well, and they shower themselves. So Lala Bahriya by the sea. One of my first tours, I had this wonderful guide. I'm sure you'll need several guides. There's so many of you on this tour. But we are looking at Jamal Fana in Marrakesh. Your hotel is somewhere in the corner. It came much later. This is an early picture. I think you're all going to the, what is it? Sorry, I just came back from Canada. I'm kind of gaga, yeah. But, you know, whatever hotel you're going to is this big French resort, and it's on the Place. Oh, it created a huge uproar when they dared build something on Jamal Fana, but somebody did, and that's where you will stay. So you can step out into this plaza, which comes alive at night with the snake charmers and the dancers and the fortune tellers and the boxers and the monkeys. Be careful, the monkeys, they climb all of you, and the snake The snake charmers I personally don't like, but it's a kick. And be careful of your wallets and your purses. These are master thieves that work here, and they train the little guys, but it's pretty well protected right now. The food is, I am told, okay to be eaten, because it didn't used to be that way, but they are pretty much watched over by the health department. So if you have dinner on place, I think you should be okay. It's a kind of a cake, the brochette, excellent. This is a friend I met here. His name is Tahar. And Tahar grew up and performed as an acrobat on the Plage now. Except he came to America, because I can't remember why. And he fell under the watchful eye of Kenneth Feld, the head of Barnum and Ringling Brothers, the Ringling Brothers Circus. He saw Tahar do his acrobatics somewhere in America. He came up to me, to him, to Tahar, and he said, Tahar, have you been to America? No. Would you like to go? Yes. And Kenneth Feld said, well, I need an alligator tamer. And Tahar said, what's an alligator? And Kenneth Feld sent him to Florida to be trained by the Seminole Indians on how to tame an alligator. And I'm telling you the truth. So he ended up on the cover of this Barnum and Bailey, and there he is taming the alligator. And I happened to catch him. He came to LA, and I drove up to LA. I said, I had to meet this man. Very cool guy. Don't know what he traveled around the United States with a trailer full of alligators. You will also visit Volubilis. As you know, Morocco is on the corner of Africa, northwest corner, and was also known as the breadbasket of Rome. So the Romans were there, and they picked the best places to build their cities. You will see Volubilis. This is where the movie Patton was filmed. If you have seen the movie, General Patton is in front of her and proclaims, just talks. I love Volubilis. We used to go there when I was a kid, because they still have the amphitheater, and they used to give the plays by the Alliance Française, or the théâtre or something. They came from Paris. It was wonderful. So you will surely see this, a Moussam, a Berber feast. The women of the Atlas wear these costumes. The costumes are different in every region. The tent behind is called a Caïdal tent, Caïd being the head of the town. And you will surely have that, or have a meal under a tent. And a Berber woman, the Berbers can be blonde and blue-eyed, because the Visigoth invaded Morocco, and there's definitely some Northern European blood in there, or they sometimes are black from the Sahara Desert. They're all Berber. Usually they live in the country. They are the indigenous people of North Africa. The Arabs are the invaders. They came from the east in 689. The Berbers are the original inhabitants. They hold camel souks. I love camel. Actually, these are not camels, they're dromedaries. They only have one hump. I hope you run into one. It is so cool. And I went around, wrote a story once of with a vet from the Rabat School of Medicine, because he was studying the reproduction of camels and the luteinizing hormone and all this, because camels, or dromedaries, on les appelle des chameaux, are coming back into use, because it's the most efficient animal east of the Atlas Mountains in the Sahara. You use them for their wool, for their meat, for their bones. They carve a lot of artisanal little objects out of their bones. Their milk, they are used for all sorts of else, for travel, and they don't need much water. So it's really making a comeback. And camel meat is available at every market. Look at this. So this is east of Marrakesh. I don't know if you're going to go east, but this is on the Sahara side of Marrakesh. In the mountains, also in the Atlas Mountains, Jews. This is the last remaining couple of Jewish couple, Berber Jews in Morocco. They have died now, but they lived in the Atlas Mountains, and again before the Muslims came, and Berbers were animists. They worshipped objects and stones and sun. but there has been a Berber presence since biblical times. Since the destruction of the Second Temple, there was a great migration, and the Jews established towns and little villages in North Africa. The Atlas Mountains were studded with tiny little synagogues carved out of the rock. They do not exist. Well, they do exist, but the people have gone because the government of Israel decided in the 60s they needed to populate the desert, and they came to Morocco and offered money and offered incentives to move to Israel. And believe me, a good portion of these people who have moved, who are Moroccan Jews, are now living in Israel, are really homesick for Morocco. In fact, the king is very pro-Israeli, and he has reestablished relations with Israel. And so you'll run across bunches of Israeli tourists I did last time I was there. It was fun. Among the friends I included in my book in Minty, my Minty and Minarets will give you a good idea of the real kind of life you lead in Morocco, aside from all the tourist brochures. And I happen to be friendly with many artists. They helped me illustrate my first book, Come With Me to the Casbah. I think it's available on Amazon. I don't have any more here. This woman is unbelievable. She's an icon among women artists of the Arab world. She was married at 14. She was widowed at, she had a son at 15. She was widowed at 16. She was illiterate, but her paintings are now in the Museum of Modern Art in Paris. And I was lucky enough that she helped me illustrate my first book. But this is the wall of her garden, and this is her style. And the way she was discovered is that her son is also an artist, and a art dealer from Paris came down to visit Talal at his house. And Talal said, come to my house because my mother will make you a fantastic tagine. Of course, you do. In Morocco, you eat very well, and you hope to be invited to someone's home because that's where you eat the best. But so he came and he saw paintings on the floor, like these things were all over the place. And the art dealer says to Talal, who painted these? And Talal, the son, said, my mother. So the dealer went back to Paris with Shaibia's paintings, and they go for a pretty good price these days. This is the only thing that she wrote is her signature, and that's how she did it. But she never learned to write or to read. This artwork is another friend of mine whose name is Rahul. He exhibits all over Casablanca. He also helped me illustrate my book, a very kind man. And he's my neighbor in Azemmour and in Casablanca. And he cooked for our tours because obviously I had entries that, I took people to my friends' houses, twisted their arm. And so Rahul prepared a tangia. Tangia is cooked in this amphora in a very traditional manner. It's actually a tradition of Marrakesh. If you're in Marrakesh, order a tangia. They'll charge you an arm and a leg for some reason. There's really nothing expensive in it, but it's cool. You can have it actually on the Plage de Belfna. You can order a tangia. It's made of lamb or beef, cooked in the amphora, sealed with this butcher paper. And once it's cooked, it's traditionally it's the meal of single men in Marrakesh who used to fill this with inexpensive cuts of meat, and then they dropped it off at the neighborhood oven so that it would cook. It's like a crock pot, and it would cook until they would come back from work. They would retrieve the tangia. And this is my version of that tangia, which is great to entertain with. It's a very good sauce. And that's a recipe from Minty and Minarets. I've written 5 books on Moroccan cuisine, but the Minty has really the best recipes. Well, they're all good, but it's very colorful. Near me, near Azemmour, I went to visit the falconers. These men are the only falconers who are allowed to work or catch falcons or hunt with the king. And the Saudis are very fond of this kind of hunting. And they told me, these men, they send them 747s for the falcons to go to Saudi Arabia for a hunt and then come back to Morocco. And that is the truth. So there's a falcon, a peregrine. And while we were there, they gave us a demonstration of a falconry, and they threw a little pigeon in the air, and that's the only thing that falcon eats. And you know, you have to weigh the food because they're not very big birds. You don't want to overweight them. So it's like maybe, you know, 100 grams or 2, 3 times a day or whatever. But this is, he landed near us. And along with having tea with the falconers, one of my favorite condiments is called smen, S-M-E-N. Smen is you have to make it, you can't bring it back from Morocco. It's similar to a very pungent gorgonzola cheese. And the custom is for a father in southern Morocco, in one of the tribes, to bury the butter. It's a mixture of butter, oregano, tea, and salt. So you bury this in another amphora on the day your daughter is born, and you retrieve it on the day she gets married. And believe me, it is pungent, but there is nothing like, where am I here with like with smen and warm bread cooked in the woman's oven, or the tribe elder's oven. It's fabulous. Anyway, you have to like it. You use very, very tiny amounts in a tagine or in soup. When I led my tours, I gave cooking classes at the Riyadh. So now you see the inside of my atrium, the tagine, cooking at the Casbah. I think it's still available on the internet. I don't have any. And this implement here is called the racha. It's a mill to grind grain like wheat. It weighs, I don't know, 200 pounds, maybe. It's huge. There's no way. I threatened to bring it home, and my husband, nah, said, it's not, you're not. So in the racha, you grind your grain. And I always offered my passengers to have their hand henna, and I love it. The henna tattoo only lasts for 2 weeks. So it's a real art, and there's my hands. And it's a sign of friendship and welcome for the women to do that. And of course, the brides all get hennaed. Along with Bouchaï's wife, for breakfast, this is a few years ago, we would make bagrir. Bagrir is a leaven pancake, sort of like a blini. And now you'll see it because I was the first one to do these food tours to Morocco. I started in the mid-80s, and I would fight with the hotel, you know, continental breakfast, des croissants, du café, du chocolat. And I used to say, why don't you give my people a Moroccan breakfast? So they listened to me somewhere, but now everybody has Moroccan breakfast. And the hotels especially, they put on a great show. Bagrir to go with a syrupy sweet mint tea, and you keep your tea warm over the coals in these pot-bellied teapots. I've seen them on eBay. Check on eBay. There's a lot of Moroccan artifacts, and the only reason I'm saying this is that they're heavy, awkward, and you can get them in the States. I hate to disillusion you, but that's true. Big Naima was my assistant when I cooked, and she's sitting here grinding the spices in the medhas for our dinner. So she's there, and she pounds and she pounds. And when you walk through the Medina, whether it's Marrakesh or wherever you're going, you will hear this pounding, 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 and it's the woman who is grinding her spices. You always hear pounding. Spices for barania, an eggplant and beef dish, which is delicious. I entertain with this a lot. It's very appreciated in the States. Not spicy. We don't like picante in Morocco. You do not make things picante. If you go to Tunisia, you have my permission. But in Morocco, the point of the food is the blending and the subtlety of the flavorings that are important. This mourouziya, it's candied beef almost, and you prepare it with a lamb that's left over from the feast, from the big feast, the Eid al-Hadda, mourouziya, because it keeps very well. It's cooked with honey, and there's prunes and sesame seeds. Your backdrop to the ramparts of Marrakesh are the High Atlas Mountains, and the High Atlas You probably will see some snow. I think you're going in March, but you can ski up there. It's wonderful skiing. And these are the ramparts which have been rebuilt. They look very, very pretty. On the other side of these mountains are all the Kasbahs. And that's why cooking at the Kasbah, come with me to the Kasbah. The Kasbah Chronicle is my place. And these are little fortified villages or douar or on the other side, on the east side, and a real true oasis. Date palms, and there is irrigation. It comes from the mountains, from the snow melt. You see that in the spring. Another one. I love that one. It's a beautiful. It's the favorite oasis. My husband's favorite oasis. What's interesting, it's very much like California. It's a tiered agricultural zone. So you have the date palms, you eat them, and then you have the citrus at this height, and then you have fava beans at this height, and then on the ground you have alfalfa for the animals and all the fresh vegetables you can think of, and you step out of the oasis and it's nothing. It is, I'll show you in a minute. Yes, you can ski in Morocco sometimes until April. The snow melt feeds the rivers where these women can do their laundry, and that irrigates the countryside around. But this is the Sahara in the evening. This is truly the sand dune. I don't think you'll get there. I don't know if you will, but this is the sand dune even further east inland towards Algeria. It's beautiful marmalade colored sand. It's gorgeous. Where we met these two kids. And look at what they're using here, metal boxes, and they're playing music. But what's more interesting are those little hillocks in the back. This is it's called a kektara, and it's been there since the 16th century. It's a Persian way of irrigating underneath. And I don't know why they don't do that in California. Anyway, we need so much water, but there's a tunnel underneath. And so if it snows or there's a river, it's covered over, it does not evaporate. And these are sort of chimneys that aerate the place. So you can go from, mound to mound to mound, and this goes for miles towards the oases to carry it out into the desert. And it's very interesting. And now they have dug out a couple of them, and you can go down and check it out. It's amazing, but it's a Persian tradition. Then where you are, you see Volubilis, you'll be in the north in Fez. I do believe you go to Fez. Sorry, I'm not sure. I didn't study itinerary, but anyway, you see Volubilis, Meknes, Fez, on the most fertile ground in Morocco. And the French discovered that as well when they were established a protectorate from 1912 to 1957. Morocco was French, a French protectorate, which is why I speak French. I went to French school, and my grandfather was a French vice consul. But like the Romans, the French discovered this was the best place to grow vines. Morocco is a wine producing country. Muslims are not supposed to drink. Okay, let's say they don't. But most of the wine is for local consumption, also sent to France to be a blended wine with some French wines, like in Tunisia and Algeria. But this is all beautiful country. You should be there at the right time. The view from my back door at Darzitoun is of one of Morocco's main rivers called the Eribia. Eribia means the mother of spring, which I think is a wonderful name. And so you can just sit there, and it goes up and down. It's a tidal river. We're only a mile from the Atlantic, and you can see here the tide is low. I wouldn't fish out of it. It's not terribly clean, but it's beautiful to look at. It is famous for a local species of fish called a species of shad. And I don't particularly like it. It's very greasy, but they do have a local specialty. And people come to Azemmour to eat this, this species of shad. Now, along the coast, which is also very agricultural, green, just like California, this is how they plow their fields. And it's very unusual to see two dromedaries together because they usually end up spitting and fighting. So this one, I really ran out of the car to take that picture because you don't see it very much. And like Mediterranean climate also permits, allows us, this is what we find at the market, at the souk. Everything's fresh. You go there every day and you buy what's in season. He died, unfortunately, but this was my vendor. And at the souk is a weekly market located exactly 1 day's donkey ride apart, so that the farmers could go from one to the other. You know, this is the Tuesday souk in Azemmour. The Wednesday one might be in El Jadida nearby. But this is what I find when I go shopping at the at the farmers market. And the market in Casablanca is much more chichi, because here you will find the escarole, and you'll find the mori, and you'll find the chou Bruxelles, and you'll find this is mallow. We have that. The Mexicans eat that. Bocola, it's a bit like spinach, but you see everything. And also behind here, fabulous butcher shop, pork and beef and chicken and horse meat. So this is quite expensive, and it was run down when I started my tours, and then I started taking people there, and I do believe that somebody realized it. Now I was featured on CNN at the market, and all of a sudden the next time I went, puff, it was beautiful. Now the main, the traditional comfort food of Morocco, the staple is couscous. Couscous is not a grain. Couscous is made from a grain, which happens to be durum wheat. And then it is grown. This is around Marrakesh. You'll probably see it if it's in season. They have 2 harvests here, one in spring, one in the fall. So they are harvesting by hand with a sickle, and then you grab it, and then you take it to the to be winnowed, and to be aired out, the grain separated from the chaff, and then you load it on the donkey, and you take, well, no, actually that's straw, because the straw is a leftover and it's used for bedding and cushions and things. So when I want couscous, I go to see my vendor in Azemmour. He's got the grain, the wheat here, which he measures in a décalitre, left over from the French colonial period. So it's décalitre. And Fatima grinds it in the racha. You see, there's the grains. And she grinds it into pellets of varying sizes. She can do flour, but also for couscous, it's sort of a medium grade. And you see, this is the wheat. This is the frih. It's like cracked wheat, like bulgur, not bulgur. This is one measure, one size of couscous, and this is very fine. So this is what she can obtain from when she does that in the racha. Now, to make couscous, you blend and roll the semolina with a little bit of salted water until you obtain the pellet size that you want. So you have to see a little bit of flour, a bit of water and a bit of salt. And then ça s'appelle rouler le couscous. Alors, il est en train de rouler le couscous in a sort of a figure-8 fashion. And couscous is traditionally steamed in a couscous pot, a couscousier. There's a soup pot at the base, and it's topped with a sieve. You put the semolina in the sieve and all your vegetables underneath, and the steam from the veggies steams the couscous. Now, I have couscous recipes in all my book. It's my favorite comfort food. I have been known to overeat. I mean, I can just hate to say it, overeat and sick on couscous. I love couscous. So you can have a savory couscous in the style of Casablanca with 7 vegetables, comme ça. And you eat it with your fingers, the first 3 fingers of your right hand, and you make a little ball and you pop it in your mouth. My grandfather, the one who lived in Milwaukee, was an absolute expert at eating couscous. But Anne lived in Morocco too, so she knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, voilà les petits légumes. The other, well, you can make couscous savory or sweet. You can add cinnamon and sugar. Very often at my presentation, I serve a buttermilk couscous, cinnamon, sugar, and a little bit of buttermilk mixed with couscous. People rave and ground almonds. It's delicious. The other iconic dish of Morocco is a tagine. A tagine is the name of the dish, like a stew, but very elegant, delicious. I mean, myriad variations. This is one of a chicken and peanut sauce, and see a little bit, I served a little bit of couscous. This is in mint tea. Now for my tours, I often had my tours at Thanksgiving because it's a very good time of the year and not too overcrowded. And so I would write ahead, call ahead, get a hold of the chef. And I said, listen, in America, you have turkey for Thanksgiving. Ah, okay. So I make a turkey. And I said, what can you stuff it with? And he said, well, couscous, of course. So I had my first couscous stuffed turkey, and I give a recipe in mint tea, and it's the best thing. That's the only thing now is turkey stuffed with couscous, and you know, either sweet or dried fruit or whatever you want. Usually it's a bit on the sweet side, of course, cinnamon, and it's steamed and mixed with a saffron. We make great use of saffron. So the couscous, I don't know if they still have it on the menu, but it was a big hit. And then in mint tea, I give a recipe for, you see, the stuffed couscous with figs. The figs come from my tree, and we have in Morocco, in season, you get figs with your couscous. I was featured on the Food Channel. They flew me to New York. You might remember Sarah Moulton. She was great. She was a friend of Julia's. I also cooked alongside Julia, but at a different time. And so they flew me to New York just so that I could show Sarah how to make couscous. And I did. Visiting farms. I'm sorry, what is this here? Do you see a clear picture of this? I hope. No? I'm sorry, I don't know how this disappears. But anyway, I'm holding a baby turkey, one that will find its way eventually into a turkey couscous. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening here, but I hope you see the picture. I don't want to add text. So let's go. Don't think they're all like that. Yeah. Tagines. I was talking about tagines is the name of the dish as well as the implement. And it's usually cooked on charcoal like this. The Kanoun is the name of this little earthenware. I have 6 or 7 of them. I use them for barbecuing. They're great. So you can get some of these tagines in the United States. However, they're very unusual because now they have so many foreign made French and German and Tunisian, and those are glazed, so you cook in them. This one is glazed on the outside, but not on the inside. And in the United States, I have been told, you say it's a decorative item. The glazed one from Tunisia are fine. You put them in the oven, and you also use them on top of the stove on a diffuser, not directly on the stove. But these, so I'm going to disclaimer, do not eat in them, except in Morocco, we eat in them. So tagine. Of squab, and I apologize, I'm not sure what this is. Not sure. This is a tagine of squab, which is the name for pigeon and almonds. It's a tagine of celebration, and we do eat pigeon. You know what? These are so expensive in the States, like $22 a piece. And I kept saying, why can't I just go catch my pigeon there on the side of the road? That's what they are. But great. This tagine of seafood, fish and preserved lemons and olive is a tradition. And in every book, I give you a recipe for how to preserve your own lemons. If you're going to make Moroccan food, you need preserved lemons. They're not boiled, they're not frozen. You have to make them 6 weeks ahead of time. I give you the recipes everywhere. Just make the real thing. Sometimes you can buy preserved lemons, but do not buy the Trader. Actually, they stopped. Trader Joe's were disgusting. They stopped carrying them because they're just floating in water. And if you go to Crate and Barrel or that kind of store, they'll have beautiful jars filled with preserved, what they call preserved lemon. They just preserved in boiling water. Do not buy. Make your own. It's salt. That's it. All you need is salt and lemons. Now, because you eat with your hands in Morocco, bread is very important. So this is an assortment of breads that you might find. These are Jewish bread. It could be a challah. This is another Moroccan, Sephardic bread, and then the batbout and the little rolls, and then the big roll. You'll be served bread until you can't look at bread anymore. In Darzitoun, Aisha used to make bread. You make it every day. You take it to the neighborhood oven. We have an oven at 50 meters from our front door. So she makes the bread. She takes it to the oven and I pick it up, you know, for a dime or something when I need it. There's our baker. He's putting the bread in his wood-fired oven. And this is a woman in the Sahara. They have a different method of making bread because it's very hot and they're not, this is very poor and it's a different bread. It's a flat bread. Nice baskets. I recommend you buy those. These are fun. This is a very traditional platter, but it's very heavy and it's earthenware. It'll break, but that's what you cook in. You live with this platter. Sponge, using wheat flour, are beignets. You will have them at breakfast. Eat them immediately when they're warm because they turn very rubbery afterwards. A traditional pastry are gazelle horns filled with fresh almond paste, not marzipan. I give you the recipe to make your own almond paste, which is different than marzipan. Shabakiya is a traditional pastry of Ramadan. It's coiled, and I've seen similar pastries in Indian restaurants. It's coiled and dipped in honey, boiled in honey. She's making this dada. This dada means a cooking expert. You hire these ladies to make warka. Warka is phyllo dough made by hand on a special copper-covered implement over the coals. So you can imagine her fingertips were like leather. She's applying this mixture of flour and water and salt, as she explained to me, like the hoof prints of a camel. That's the best quote in my book. And this will be as thin as possible. You have to be able to read the newspaper through it. And actually a good substitute, all those Vietnamese, you know, what you use to make nem, you find them in Vietnamese store, brick, they call them brick, brick dough, but this is warka. Make a pastry, another iconic dish, the chicken bastila, which is sweetened chicken, flavored with saffron, cinnamon, cilantro, turmeric. It actually looks much more complicated than it is to make, and you can freeze it before you cook it. So follow my recipe and you'll have bastila. I came up with this idea for a dessert bastila, which is called johara in Morocco. And I'm using here Filipino lumpia wrappers because they are more strong. And you fry the wrappers and then you put whatever you want in between. It's quite easy and spectacular. Now, Morocco is famous for its olives, harvested around Volubilis. And my preserved lemons, you see how they are? You have to make them at least 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time. And they do not need to be refrigerated until you can penetrate the rind with the tip of a fork. And it's very, very traditional. You can make a salad dressing with the inside, or you baste salmon with the pulp. I cut it in teeny pieces. My husband loves it in tuna salad. That's how you buy it at the market. You'll probably see this. This is in Meknes, a great market in Meknes. Make shakshuka, which is Moroccan and not Algerian, and not Israeli. Now they keep saying shakshuka. It's not. It's a Algerian. My great-grandmother used to make it. She was Algerian. Anek tagine, delicious. I make that all the time. Eggs and spices in tomato sauce, fabulous. Now, you will probably go to argan country. I think I saw that somewhere. An argan is an olive-like fruit, and it's called a drupe. And this drupe is the favorite food of goats. So you will see, now they make them pose. But, you know, these goats, they love the argan fruit. And the fruit falls to the ground. It used to be ingested by the goats and ejected by the goats. And the women would gather the seeds and roast them, and then they would make an oil out of it. So this is what's inside. Une amande and the dried fruit, which you give to the goats, and these, which you have to crack open to get the argan oil. And be very careful where you buy, if you do use it in America, because there is no way that there's that quantity of argan oil on the planet. I have even seen it at the 99-cent store. So for this, though, the roasted almond and nut is used for cooking. It's got a very hazelnutty flavor. But the raw one, when it's crushed, has an oil that's used in cosmetics. So you go to your hairdresser now and you see shampoo with argan oil. And I'm wondering, where does all this argan oil come from? But I'm sure that it's legal. But see, this is cracked open by hand. Not anymore. They do have factories. but it's traditional. And you will see these later. You will see them for sure. Here's the co-op grinding the argan fruit. And a little guy on the side of the road selling argan oil. I don't know how fresh it is, but that's what it is like. And now, even in Morocco, you go to a grocery store or a supermarket. It's kind of fun. You'll see these. You can bring them back as long as they're sealed. See arganium, all these things. Etc. As I said before, Morocco has 2,000 kilometers of coastline, so sardines and fish are very often on the menu. Also, fresh almonds for dessert. A sign of welcome is buttermilk, dates, and almonds. And this implement in the back is called a rashasha. And you should get it there if you want. It's an orange blossom dispenser. People always ask me, well, where can I buy it? I've never seen it in the United States. Stuffed dates with almond paste, very traditional. I make that for Christmas, a great gift. And mul halbiya is sort of a blancmange flavored with orange blossom water, candied almonds, and pomegranates. This is what Shaibia gave me when I went to visit her. You can read the chapter in the book. Spices are totally necessary and for sale in the market, just like that. The paprika, sweet paprika, not hot paprika, and the turmeric and the cumin and cinnamon and who knows, ginger. And these are gorgeous. And then I discovered the guy had stuck this to a cardboard base, but I think it's just stunning. We make great use of saffron, a crocus that we grow here in California. We found this guy on the side of the road selling kilos. Can you imagine? There's probably $1,000 of saffron in here. The most expensive spice in the world, but totally necessary for Moroccan food, like Spanish food. My spice vendor in Azemmour was also the fortune teller. And so these are all the objects that he used for curing your headache. If you wanted to get pregnant, you go see the guy, and then he would crush my spices. This special blend called Ras El Hanout, head of the shop. And in Marrakesh, they have a big commercial enterprise, which is quite interesting. You go there and they tell you the history of everything. So Ras El Hanout, do buy some in Morocco. It's quite unusual, although McCormick makes it. But and it's mine. My spice vendor had 32 different ingredients in the Ras El Hanout. And that's very common among American chefs. But what they don't have is Spanish fly. If you want to be more powerful as a male, you add Spanish fly to your Ras El Hanout. And the funny thing is, I was giving a presentation at the library in Los Angeles, and I sent around my Spanish fly, and it never came back. Somebody in LA was using my Spanish fly. Okay, again, dar zitoun, we often cook over the coals, I showed you, especially brochette, the kebabs, and serve with harissa, the hot sauce, which is not Moroccan, not Israeli, but Tunisian. So Moroccans don't like picante food. I do not make this picante, but it's delicious. My Tunisian friend was eating it with a spoon. Medina magazine featured, you see, Dar Zitoun and Azemmour. We live close to 2 or 3 huge golf resorts where the Saudis fly in for the weekend, play golf, and then go home. And Azemmour is probably 2 miles down the road, but they don't mingle. They stay in their resort. The river up here, you can see the sea. And this is our oasis, my husband and my oasis. So I'm going to switch continents and country now and tell you a bit about my new book, which should be out in January 23. My mother was a Milwaukee resident for 45 years. And when she died, I found this little black suitcase in her closet. I had no idea what was inside. I tell you, the surprise was enormous. The woman on the top is my great grandmother, whose name was Blanche, and I am named after Blanche, but I had never seen the contents of this little suitcase. We put cherries here because Blanche is from Alsace. She's dressed as an Alsacienne, and the cherries are part of the fruits of Alsace. So this is the suitcase that came from France to Morocco to America in great protection, you know. And that's the cover of my book, A Wartime Journal and Heirloom Recipes from Occupied France. In it, I found one little booklet, one little notebook of my great-grandmother's recipes. I mean, I was floored. It's third year of writing and editing. But so I got my great-grandmother's recipes, which I wanted to reproduce, and I tested. The story is her husband was Prosper Lévy, and she was Blanche Lévy-Némar. Prosper was an army doctor during World War I, decorated twice of the Légion d'honneur, and he was quite, he was a fixture in Chalon-sur-Marne, which is about 2 hours south of Strasbourg, and where I hope to go next year. I haven't been able because of COVID. So I found these, can you believe it? So I opened this book and I'm seeing these recipes. And I'm going, I've written 10 cookbooks. Do I really want to do this? Yes, of course. So I wrote, for me, it's memorializing these people, because Blanche died at Auschwitz with her daughter, son-in-law, and all sorts of cousins. I have the receipts or the lists. Unbelievable what I found. And Prosper was left to die in 1944 in a hospital in Toul. He suffered from dementia. I found online Chalon-sur-Marne, the original in I think this is Chalon-sur-Marne in 1918 or something. So they lived several places in Chalon-sur-Marne. I also reproduced many documents, and this is a Nazi-sanctioned postcard where you can only say what the Nazis said. Nous sommes en bonne santé. De la famille va bien. That's it. We need provisions. We don't need money. And then he says here, this is Prosper. We were very happy to get your card from Tangier. We think of you very much and be very happy to have news of you. The cold is diminishing. And that's all they could say, because up here it says, carte strictement réservée à la correspondance d'ordre familial. If la carte dans le libellé, the writing, ne sera pas uniquement d'ordre familial, ne sera pas acheminée. So they didn't send it. So that's all they could communicate with. Blanche in her costume of Alsacienne, with a big black bow in the back of her head. And my great-grandfather's journal, unbelievable, who chronicles the advance and occupation of the Germans from April to December 1940. I translated it into English, so it's all in the book. But you see here, 1er août, 1st of August, 31 juillet, July 31. A new month is starting, and it's just really so sad. I mean, it was very traumatic for me. But anyway, it's all in the book. I translated it, along with my great-grandmother's favorite recipes, and also her daughter, my grandmother's, and her granddaughter, my mother, because I realized after I read all her recipes, I've been eating these all my life, but I didn't know the origin. And it turns out, great-grandmother. Okay, how did I get to Milwaukee? Well, on a collapsed bed. But I met my husband, I went to UWM, and they used to have at that time, 1966, spring follies or something. I think now the students think this is kind of insane and stupid, but I was picked because in my sorority, Alpha Phi, I was the smallest and the lighter. So they plunked me on this bed that one of the students' father built. It was a bicycle frame, and it fell. I fell off. I was laughing so hard. I didn't know what I was doing. And they ended up carrying me. Owen, that's how Owen was called to help by one of my sorority sisters, how I met my husband. And in the end, they carried me like a stretcher. And we made the news and the newspaper. Anyway, a little resume of Menti here, the big thing, and Bouchard, she's great. Then this is the title to Darcy Toon, Duplicata de titres fonciers. Now, if you read Minty and Minaret, you will learn it took me 15 years to transfer the title from my father's name to mine and my stepbrother's. 15 years. I tried to keep my good humor, but it was not fun. I'm just giving you here some more. If you're interested, you can put your name, contact me on my website or my email, Darzitoun. My newsletter, I try to get it out every month, not too punctual, but I will from now on. And you can order from my website. I think Bittersweet is already listed on Amazon, but it's not coming out till the end of January 2023. And voila, fin. Thank you very much.
Merci.
De rien, de rien, de rien.
I'm
If you,
I'm going
I don't have the chat thing here. Oh, no, wait a minute. It's up here. Oh, it's usually down.
wait, yeah, I think there aren't any questions that I can see in the
Okay.
chat. So if people just want to unmute themselves, there are not that many people. I think we can just chat. I'm just wondering how to stop seeing Kitty's, stop participants sharing. Is that okay?
Oh, please, I don't know. You lead
yeah,
me from
this
it.
is
Oh,
better.
d'accord. Okay, there we go.
So if you
So
want
anyway.
to unmute yourselves, Chris, Sal, Ann, Peter, do you have questions? So as Kitty mentioned, I also lived in Morocco for a couple
I'm
of years.
sorry. Oh my God. 412. Oh, I took too much time. I
Oh, no, that's
apologize.
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I also lived in Morocco. I probably had much more of a country bumpkin experience. For example, I don't remember people using a lot of spices, except for definitely cilantro.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Can't live without cilantro. Yes.
And cinnamon was big.
Oh, do you like cinnamon?
I do, yeah.
I love cinnamon.
It's an acquired taste, but once you like it, you
talk about umami. Whew.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Cinnamon, I'm just trying to think, mint tea, a lot of, couscous was really special. So what people ate is bread, and bread was amazing because
that's what they can afford.
Yeah.
But where were you? Were you in the mountains?
I was in Midet.
Oh, so Midet. So they have a sort of Bali couscous. I mean, the couscous is different. And the belbula was big in Midet. It's good. Belbula is Bali.
Yeah. And then I remember, when you kill, first of all, if you like a person like myself, you go to the marketplace, you want some chicken, the chicken is walking around. It was hard to make your own food just because I didn't know what to do with a live chicken.
Yeah.
I was not
neither do I.
But they use every single part of the animal. So when they killed a goat, a goat or a lamb or a sheep, they would use a liver. They would do something which was really good, is they would take pieces of liver and surround it with a part of the fat on the stomach.
Yeah, that's the best brochette. Love it.
Yeah.
That and the heart and the kidneys. But I was born there. But it was really good.
It was good. Yeah. And the other thing they would do is sometimes take meat and they would put it out on so a house has a flat roof, and of course it's very hot and dry.
Oh yeah.
And just put the meat out for like a week
to dry.
Mm-hmm. And then it's almost like I know it sounds
jerky.
Horrible, but like a fermented meat.
It's a jerky.
It's a jerky, yeah. It was good.
Yeah, it's a jerky. It is also an acquired taste. I'm okay with it because they usually cook that with scrambled eggs. It's very salty. At Darzitoun, we used to hang it on the clothesline, Anyway, dry the meat and smother it in lamb fat and put it in a corner, and you use it when you need it.
And I don't know about in other communities, but where we were, we talk a lot about meat, but you would have, for example, a fancy couscous or tagine, you would have literally the leg and the thigh of a chicken for 7 people.
Yeah.
So you're eating a lot of bread and couscous and vegetables and a little bit of meat. So
yeah, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Now when I go to the market, I don't get a chicken. They sell pieces. You get 2 legs or 1 bird. It's very expensive. Mm-hmm. Really.
And then I don't know why, but once in a while in our village, there would be a truck and a truck of oranges would come. So you would buy like massive amounts of oranges. But I remember there was a truck of fish.
Yeah.
So that, it was like literally a dump truck full of fish, and then you would have it, and then they would put it in this grinder and make these fish balls. It was really good.
Yeah.
Just so kind of a strange, it was weird to get like a bag of fish and then
Yeah.
to just grind
They
up
had
that.
to, well, they had to drive very fast because it came from the ocean and it was that same day. I mean, otherwise it's spoiled. But in Middeldt, you were in the middle of rock country,
Yeah, yeah.
right? All the mines.
It was a Berber town. It's interesting because it has a French Catholic church,
Yeah.
and then it has the mines, and it has a convent that
Yes.
works, I think, with lepers, and then also with women, helping women sell their rugs and their.
Yeah. And
sewing.
embroidery. Yeah. The
Yeah.
nuns were everywhere in Morocco. Well, there were many convents where they taught the women, how to cook or how to embroider or how to make rugs or, yeah.
And I don't know if it's so much how to do it or how to market it. I'm not quite sure which.
That too,
part of it.
both.
Yeah, but yeah, it was great. I mean, but it's really, country bumpkin.
Well, my dad has changed, I hate to tell you.
In a good
It's
way, or-
big. It's big. Everything in Morocco is
Yeah.
so big, and everybody's on the internet and on Facebook, and you go to an oasis and they're all, on Skype. I couldn't believe it. They were in front of a computer talking to someone in the Netherlands, because most immigrants go to the Netherlands. I mean, it was quite funny. It's humorous. Yeah, like I said, Marrakesh is just about Palm Springs. So
Well, I was there in the mid 80s, and then I went. The Peace Corps organized a trip right after 9/11, so in 2001, and I thought it had changed really in a good way, where they're really trying to, help women become more literate, because illiteracy was
They do 50%. Yeah.
yeah, and it seemed like there was more of a middle class and not so much this big divide. I don't know if it
Yeah.
actually worked, but
They're trying,
They're trying, yeah.
but just, well, it's, it's a developing country, and you have to be careful of your
Yeah.
purse when you're outside and that kind of thing.
I mean, it was when in the 80s, it was just, you were just constantly harassed. And I
Mhm.
felt in 2001, that wasn't so much the case.
No, that is because they had such a problem. They had to put police all around the Plage de Malfina. It was unbearable. With one
was
of my
unbearable.
groups, we came out of the place where you'll all go on the terrace, attacked by about 20 women. I mean, attacked. And my guy said, get back inside. And the police had to come get these horrible women aside, and we could get out. But it's quite changed. There's police all over. I mean, it's such a money-making area that, they're going to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, they depend so much on
tourism.
that they're really making an effort for tourists to have a good
I
experience.
have to tell you, I was there 2 years ago, I think it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, with a group. And one of my passengers came up to me. She said, I just had the strangest experience. I said, oh God, what is it on Plage de Malfina? She said, this guy came up to me and he whispered in my ear, let's make America great again.
That is weird.
And honestly, I laughed for 3 days. It was so incongruous. It was so funny. But they're all on Facebook and they're all on the internet. And be careful, ask permission to take a photo, because I didn't. And this guy came out and he told me off up and down, and he asked for my phone and he erased the photo. They're not nice. I mean, you have to pay for it, but
Mhm.
they need our money.
Right, and also, I mean, when I was there a long time ago, I think there was something superstitious about photos, but probably this isn't the same.
No, for the women.
Yeah.
You always ask permission because they think you're taking their soul away. But Malfina is, it's very touristy, and they have learned that they will ask for money, and I don't mind it. That's how they make a living.
Mhm.
But that person was not nice. Couldn't. Okay. And I was speaking in French and gave him a few words of Arabic. Didn't work. So be careful. Be aware of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, they do need money.
Yeah,
And
it's, definitely. And there's now a huge divide. Marrakesh is supposed to be the poorest city in Morocco. You won't see it, but
Mhm.
it's over 1 million people. There's lots of people and lots of traffic,
Mhm,
but the center is very pretty.
mhm. Well, it's one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to, and I mean, it's visually beautiful, but the smells are just incredible. Like you walk through those spice places, and then there's the olives, and then Midalt, at least, I don't know if it's still the case, they heated themselves with cedar wood.
Uh-huh.
So you have that cedar firewood, which
Yeah.
is just amazing, and then
Yeah.
mints and cilantro, and it just is
It's
amazing.
different. Different. I mean, I kind of take it for granted, but it's very visually, very visually interesting and appealing, very colorful, and now it's very modern. I mean, that's all. Things evolve.
Well, when I went in 2001, I felt like the gap between Casablanca and Paris was smaller than Casablanca and Midelt, for example.
Well, Casablanca is considered the Paris of Africa. And so immigrants from the sub-Sahara come up there, and they have seen Paris, if they can't make it to the real thing. So yeah, Casablanca is very cosmopolitan, my goodness.
Yeah, it's a big
When I-
bustling city,
very.
and with lots of cars and everything.
Traffic's terrible, and
Mhm.
it's okay for, one morning, but I think your itinerary does Rabat. And so that's all I used to do, Poops. We have Menti, and then we go out, and but I love Rabat. Rabat's very nice, and Meknes I like.
Mhm.
Fez is interesting.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's got a lot of.
I mean, you can spend a week in every city. and
Oh,
we
at
we don't have
least.
that time. Yeah.
At least. Well, guys, I think I should let you go. I'm sorry, you should have cut me off.
No, it was so interesting.
It's
I
only
found it fascinating.
4:23 here. So-
Okay, yeah, for us it's 6:23.
Oh là là. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Non,
but-
c'est super.
Ouais,
Merci.
merci. Merci beaucoup. Ben, si quelqu'un a des questions, you know where to find me.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to the books.
Yeah, it'll be probably middle of next year, but that'll be some book.
Yeah,
It'll
it's
be-
funny because I know you, I know your mom, I know Martin.
I know. And
Stephanie.
you knew my grandfather, didn't you?
I may have met him. Well, when did he pass away?
Oh, a long time ago, in the
Yeah.
mid-70s. And then
Yeah,
my
probably then
grandmother,
I probably didn't know him then.
he founded Les Causeries du Samedi, and I think it's still going on.
I don't know, Causerie. We tried
Or
to
something, you have a different name for it, but whatever
Yeah.
it is, on Samedi, and Pepe went there, and my grandmother, Martine, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have no reason to come back to Milwaukee, but it's nice to talk to you all.
Yeah, it's nice to be. Well, that's a fantastic thing with Zoom.
I
You
know.
know that the pandemic taught us is this.
Yeah, and it's always great to reconnect, and I'll send books when I'm
Great.
Yeah, I will. But
And I have your cookbooks at home, but I'm not going to give them up. So
wonderful. Keep on cooking. I answer questions.
merci.
Merci, Anne, and merci to the others. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. This was
Thank
great.
you. Au revoir. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.